Oh, it tells me it's,
Mm-hmm. And we are live. All right. So hello, everyone. Welcome to our Facebook Live talk show called Talking to Tyler. I'm here with Dr. Chris Wolters, Director of the Dennis Learning Center. Let's give him a round of applause. Woo!
wow, I can hear that.
So, Dr. Walters, I'll just be giving you some questions to answer and to get us to know a little bit more about the Dennis Learning Center and also about yourself. Um, so let's get started.
Sure. It's great to be here.
So, thank you. So, first question. So, this question is really telling us about yourself. So, what is your role at OSU and in the Dennis Learning Center?
Sure. So I technically have two different roles or hats that I wear at OSU. I am the director of the Dennis Learning Center, and that is where I office. That's where I spend all my days normally. And that oversees a couple of different staff members and people like yourself, and is focused on, I think we'll get to in a little bit, different forms of outreach and providing academic support. The other hat that I wear is, I'm also a professor with the educational psychology program in the Department of Educational Studies within the College of Education. So what that means is that I have a lot of the typical responsibilities that any faculty member would have, which is conducting research, teaching classes, serving on students' committees, having graduate students, and those sorts of things, in addition to the administrative work that I do as director at the Dennis Center.
Wow, a lot of hats that you wear. So how long have you been at the Dennis Learning Center?
I started as the director of the Dennis Learning Center officially, I think it was August 1st of 2013. So my family and I were in Houston before this, and we actually moved to Columbus. I think we moved in on July 4th in 2013. So it's been almost exactly 7 years since we arrived in town, and give or take a few weeks or a month, 7 years since I started as the director of the Dennis Center and at Ohio State.
All right. So our next question is, what are other experiences that you have had prior from being the director of the Dennis Learning Center? So you could talk a little bit more like what you're doing out in Houston or any other experience that you did have prior to being the director.
Sure. So like I said, before coming here, I was in Houston. I was a faculty member at the University of Houston for, I think it was 17 years. And that was the job that I got more or less straight out of graduate school. And so it's where I started as an assistant. Actually, I started off as a visiting assistant professor, and then an assistant professor, and then a associate professor. And finally, I was promoted to a professor in the College of Education there. I don't know if I want to say where I got my my PhD and my other degrees at. Let's just say that it was a little bit north of here. And that's where I grew up. I grew up in Southeast Michigan, and I did get my degrees at the University of Michigan. And as soon as I finished with my degrees, I was in Houston doing research, teaching in the EdPsych program there. And in terms of what I do research on, it's been motivation and aspects of self-regulated learning ever since I was in graduate school. I think as I was finishing my time at Houston, or as I was sort of the years just before I came to Ohio State, and certainly after I've arrived at Ohio State, my research has focused a little bit more on college-age students, university students. Whereas before, when I first started at Houston and when I was in graduate school, I was doing work that was a little bit more focused on middle school students and high school students. But yeah, I grew up in Michigan, and it's been great to get back to Midwest. It's one of the reasons my wife grew up in Indianapolis. I grew up in Michigan. And so being back in Columbus and having 4 seasons, having snow, being closer to family, all of that's been great.
That's nice. Yeah, definitely. Especially with the whole Michigan thing. We'll keep that to the side, but the whole thing, everything was nice, especially your like further research with your master's degree and your PhD and continuous research that you have been doing. But on the
go ahead. I'm learning I've been at OSU for 7 years, and I now have a son that goes to OSU, a daughter who's thinking about going to OSU. My wife is also a professor at OSU, and so we're very much an Ohio State Buckeye family in many ways now. So it's great to be here. I really appreciate. There's a lot I love about being at Ohio State and being the director at the Dennis Center.
Love it. So with the whole thing with your research, you did talk about motivation and self-regulated learning. So would you say, did you like explore any other research topics with outside of those two? And like specifically, like what has been like your favorite topics within those research, and what has been the most difficult research that you have conducted with that?
So I mean, motivation and self-regulated learning are pretty broad topics, even within educational psychology, which is sort of my discipline. There's a lot you can do within those areas. Self-regulated learning, if there's people out there that aren't familiar with it, then it's just the idea that students can be pretty active and purposeful participants in their own learning. They can take charge of their own learning in terms of trying to control and manage their study behaviors, their level of motivation, their time management, and other sorts of aspects and factors that go into being a good student and successful student, including motivation. So when I say that my work is all sort of falls under that umbrella, for the most part it has, but there's a lot that goes into that, right? So I've done studies that with students at Houston and at Ohio State that have allowed me to sort of explore a lot of different pieces of that overall picture, right? So I've had students that are focused on sense of belonging and sort of more social aspects of learning and how people are active in those parts of it. I've had students in studies that are more about metacognition and specific learning kinds of strategies. I've had publications and different projects that have focused on particular groups of students. Right now, I'm involved in a project that's focused on first generation students and how they might sort of experience their college experience and how they are taking active roles and being purposeful about their own learning. That's one of the I think really enjoyable parts about being an academic and being a professor to me is that you have a sort of ongoing rotation of doctoral students who bring new energy to the mix, who are bringing their own ideas and their own interests, and I get to, in a sense, explore those interests as they work on them. The things that are sort of my own that I have really I've felt like I've taken a particular interest in and that have been sort of near and dear to my own heart over, I don't know, certainly since I've been at OSU. There's a couple of different areas. So as I was coming out of graduate school and throughout my time at Houston, I was very interested in, and I remain interested in, students' ability to self-regulate their own motivation. So the kinds of strategies that students use when they're faced with, what I call motivational challenges or motivational problems. So being required to do work that they find boring or that they feel like they're not going to do very well. They're worried about whether they can be successful, or they don't see the overall usefulness of learning the material or the skills or whatever is involved. Everybody's faced with these kinds of things, right? I mean, all of us, whether you're a student or a professor or a worker someplace, you're often faced with situations in which I know I got to do this. It's part of my responsibility to get this done. And part of me really wants to get it done and be successful at it. but I also have reasons why I'm not particularly motivated for it, especially if it's a new task or a repetitive task, a different kind of. So what are the things, what are the strategies that you can teach kids to have and use to overcome those situations, right? So you should be familiar with some of it in your coaching role
Right.
that, you can, there's a whole variety, and no single strategy works for everybody. It's not like I can say, oh, let me give you the secret right now. It's, and it's a matter of trying to uncover the different kinds of strategies that students can use, letting students sort of explore what those strategies are, and tailoring them to their own personality and their own preferences, and that sort of thing. So I did some initial work in this area with my dissertation. I just had open-ended questions that I said to students, okay, imagine you're in this kind of a situation where you're listening to a lecture and it's really boring. What could you do to make sure that you stay persistent, that you keep going, and that you get, take good notes? And they wrote out ideas for me, and I through my time at Houston, I sort of tried to translate those and other work that I did into an assessment of the different kinds of strategies or types of strategies that students might do. Most recently in this area, I worked with a couple of graduate students at Ohio State to refine and develop a briefer survey that has, I think, 8 items now that researchers can use to tap into this student's tendency to use these kinds of strategies and use it for research purposes. We just had an article come out. It's a little hard with articles these days because they come out online and then they're sort of available for a while, and then they finally show up in the online version of the print journal, and then they finally show up in the actual print journal and stuff. But it's available now. It's the survey, or the assessment scale, is called the BROMS, the Brief Regulation of Motivation Scale. So that's one area that's been really a continuing interest of me, say, over at least the last 10 years. One that's, I think, I've gotten even more fired up about recently is time management. It's theoretically, I felt like it was in the big theoretical models of self-regulated learning, it was being somewhat ignored in the kind of way it's like people would say, oh yeah, time management is an important issue, but in terms of assessing it and testing how that might predict students' engagement and performance in classes or their GPA and stuff, there wasn't as much work there as I thought there might be. Some good work, but not, it sort of excited me. I got excited about that when I was teaching at the University of Houston. I taught a master's level class on learning theory to mostly in-service teachers who would come to campus and attend class from like 4:30 to 7:30, so usually on a Wednesday. And I taught the class many semesters in a row, and I always had students that would talk to me about how it was difficult to get to class. They had, there was commute time. There was, these were people that had been in teachers for several years. Many of them had families, and we when we would talk as part of the class, we would talk about motivational and strategies, and I would get a lot of feedback that being able to juggle these different demands on their time was an important influence on how well they did. And it just made me realize how, for these master students, sure, but also for undergraduates, the ability to sort of juggle all of the different demands. You have multiple classes, you have multiple goals when you're in college. You want to be social, you want to meet people, you want to go out and have fun, you want to study, you want to find a job, you still have family obligations, all this sort of stuff. That to me, it seemed like area very ripe for additional study. And that's what I've been working on, at least a little bit. I've kept my hand in it ever since I've gotten to Ohio. And actually another graduate, Anna Brady, who's a graduate student of mine, and I have an article that's, again, I think it's available online now, but I'm not quite sure, that is a review of this work and a review of how time management might be an important part of self-regulated learning. It's Wolters, Brady. It's going to be in the review of educational, sorry, the educational review. No. Oh, I should know that journal right off the top of my head, and I don't. But it's been a long day already. In any case, it's a review piece, and I'm really excited about it because it sort of lays out for me an argument about why we need to better consider time management as an important part of this area of research.
Right, because
Oh, you can see it's getting me started talking about my own work. It's going to be, oh, you're never going to get another word in, Tyler. You better shut me down.
Well, time management is definitely like a crucial part of a lot of students. It's not just students. It's like a whole bunch of people need to understand how to balance their time well, and time management's always an issue. Going off a lot of college students, especially at Ohio State.
Yeah, well, and you know, one of the I didn't get a chance to say this, but one of the reasons that I came to Ohio State and that I took this position as director of the Dennis Center is because you know, when I was at the University of Houston, I had graduate students. I didn't teach a lot of undergraduate classes. In fact, I'm not sure I ever taught a full undergraduate class while I was there. And I didn't really have, you know, the work that I did was very theoretical. I was testing theories and trying to build models and that sort of thing. Really interesting stuff, work that I really love to do. But coming to Ohio State gave me this opportunity to work in a context, the Dennis Center, where the responsibility is to try and teach people and improve the real lives of college students, right? To teach people these skills, to help them improve in their motivation and their use of learning strategies and study skills and all these sorts of things, and really have that translate into them staying in college, getting a degree, and being successful in life. And time management is one of those areas that is in part appealing to me because there are so many applications, not just when kids are in school, but as they move out of school and into their careers, right? If you help kids become good at managing their time as part of their collegiate experience, it's not going to go to waste once they get into the next step of their life. It's still going to be effective, right? And you still feel like you've had a long-term impact on the ability of these individuals to be successful. And, you know, as there's a lot to be said about having a job that allows you to feel like, even if I'm not directly working with students, even if I just get to hire and see people like yourself have that faith, you know, do that work one-on-one with students, or to you know, support classes like our flagship Learning to Learn class. I don't teach the class, but I get an opportunity to hire and, you know, make sure that it's taught well, and to be a part of the curriculum development and stuff, and to feel like the students that take that class or that come to coaching with the coaches or to attend our workshops, that we may have a real impact on them, and that they, because of their experiences with us, they may be more successful at Ohio State, and perhaps even in the long term, they'd be more successful in their lives.
Right. So next question. So the Dennis Learning Center, that's just a short part of it. So it's actually called the Walter E. Dennis Learning Center. And some folks might not know who Walter E. Dennis is. So who is Walter E. Walter E. Dennis?
All right. So I shorten it most times these days to the DLC, or the Dennis Learning Center. So I appreciate the question. I think it's important to recognize how it came to have this name and what it means to have this name. So Walter E. Dennis is a sort of a local businessman and entrepreneur who has done a lot for Ohio State and has a particular strong interest in athletics at Ohio State. I think that he and his family also just finished supporting or done some support for the golf teams at Ohio State. There's some buildings anyway, I think this was somewhere around 2004, 2005, maybe even a little earlier. Bruce Tuckman, who was the original director of the Dennis Learning Center, had developed an academic learning lab that was, you know, in many ways uh, had the same goals and mission as what the Dennis Center has now. And
Mm-hmm.
through some happy circumstance, this local businessman, Walter E. Dennis, and his family, because I think they do a lot of their entrepreneurial work as sort of a family decision-making process. They decided that the work that Bruce was doing in the academic learning lab was a good mechanism for supporting student athletes in particular, but the student body more broadly. And they were in a position to donate money to Ohio State and set up this center, provide the startup funds to that, an endowment that is still being used to generate revenue that we use to pay people like yourself. The endowment that they provided is very important for us to fund our coaches and our workshops and some of the other activities that we do. I think it's also important to know that the College of Education and the Department of Educational Studies is also a big funder for our work. They're the ones that fund all of our instructional activities, in that the graduate teaching assistants, the lecturers that teach our classes are primarily paid through the college budget. So it's sort of a joint effort of this endowment the Dennis family provided in honor of Walter E. Dennis, and that the college provides through instruction. So it's a joint effort to say, hey, what can we do to help students that may struggle at Ohio State, or at least face some rough patches at Ohio State? You know, sometimes I mean, Ohio State in general, the academic rigor to get into, the academic standards to get into Ohio State continue to rise. Ohio State is a very rigorous, very high quality university. The student body is very skilled, very smart, and it just continues to be ramped up. I know, because my son is here now, I know the kind of sort of background that he had to have to get in. My daughter is interested in being here. I know that she's working very hard to sort of qualify for admission. Nonetheless, even very good students that come to Ohio State, you know, and have excellent academic records as high school students, they get to Ohio State and they can face difficulty. You know, coming to this context may be the first time where they don't have parents who at least are checking in on them and providing support. They shift from teachers who maybe see them every day and sort of really support and push them to be doing homework and engage and reminding them of deadlines and all these other sorts of things on a daily basis, to one in which professors give them a syllabus and see them maybe twice a week, and deadlines can pop up without as much notice and experience and all that. And so it can be a context that challenges kids and asks them to grow a lot as learners. And many kids experience some sort of difficulty with that. And Ohio State does its best, especially with groups that from minority backgrounds, first generation students, international students, kids that might be at particular risk for these kinds of issues. They may feel like they face difficulty, and they may say, maybe I don't belong at Ohio State. And Ohio State knows that they belong. They do belong. And we're just part of the sort of larger support system that allows us to make sure that those kids get over those challenges, develops the kind of skills, attitudes, beliefs that they need to continue at Ohio State and be successful. And I think that the Dennis family and Walter E. Dennis in particular can be proud of what they've done and what they've set in motion here. I'm certainly proud of what we do.
I am too. Yeah, we've been doing a lot for our different students, and always when we have a new group of coaches come in, there's always new ideas, fresh ideas. But we would like to thank the Dennis family and everything that they did to help us with this ongoing process with the Dennis Learning Center. Definitely. So next question is, what are some changes that you have made since you have been the director of the DLC?
What are some changes that I have made? Good question. I would say that some of the things that I've done are sort of small changes or sort of shaping scaffolding kinds of changes. And some of the things that changes that I've been responsible for are, responding to change that's thrust upon me. One of the main things that I think I would point to is that I have tried and made an effort to increase the extent to which the dentists, the center and what we do is both sort of involved in research or supporting research. So what we do at the Dentist Center is we try to apply principles and findings and understandings that have developed through research in educational psychology and use it to develop effective interventions and interventions that are going to work for college students. But that means that there also has to be this underlying process of creating research and creating new knowledge and refining our understanding of these things. And so the Dentist Center is both a place where we take knowledge that is known or principles that are understood and apply them, but it's also a place where we're constantly also generating new research, new ideas, new findings, so that that underlying knowledge base is up to date, that it responds to and is, it's responsive to places like Ohio State and the students at Ohio State and the Kings. So we have, we collect research data that sort of along these same lines. It's an assessment-based and a data-driven decision-making kind of experience at Ohio State and at the Dentist Center, right? So when we make decisions about whether we should do coaching online or the kinds of workshops that we should do, or whether we need to improve particular workshops, we try to base those decisions on assessment data that we've gotten, feedback from our clients, from our students. We try to make sure that we're constantly in a state of feedback and improvement as much as possible, right? So I think that's something that I've tried to stress and bring as a, I don't know if you hear me hesitating about change because I didn't know exactly what the Dentist Center was doing before. And so some of these things were going on, but it might be more a matter of what I've stressed and what I've tried to increase and improve. I know that when I was first here, one of the first things that Lauren Hensley and I did, we spearheaded an effort to update the curriculum in our flagship course, to get a different textbook and to really ensure that the curriculum in that course was well aligned with the most recent self-regulated learning theory and findings and that sort of thing. We consistently do that. We engage the teachers, the instructors in that process. We're consistently, and Lauren in particular, as the senior associate director, is always spearheading efforts to improve the instruction in that course, to make it more effective and more efficient. So maybe one of the things that I like to think that I've done is to stress a sort of a climate within the center that we need to consistently be collecting data and feedback and using it as a way of improving things, a way of building a better center as we go along, right? So it's, what else? What other changes have I made? Well, we've expanded some. The coaching, you're an academic coach, and I think in the spring semester before the COVID hit, and I think we were into at least 11 coaches. I think when I arrived here, we were somewhere around 4 or 5 academic coaches. So things have really expanded. And part of that's due to small changes that we've made about both in terms of trying to go out and get some more funding, to our ability to drive workshops and get, it's demand. And I think I've tried to improve the demand that we have. So let me stop there. If I think of something, I can come back around to it. It's
okay.
Yeah.
No, it's great. Your responses are really good and very thorough. I do like them a lot.
What do you like
So,
best about the Dentist Center, Tyler? What do you think is good about the Dentist
hmm,
Learning Center?
so I believe that for the Dentist Learning Center, so obviously I'm an academic coach, and I think academic coaching is very important as well. But it's hard to pinpoint like ideally like one area that is like the most like proud that I am for the Dentist Learning Center. I would say each one of the sections of it are courses, our workshops, the different research that goes on with you and like all the grad students. Um, and academic coaching, it's all hard because they all like they're all in one loop. They all help out a lot. But if I wanted to be biased, I would have said coaching. But coaching does, I believe like the coaching is like really important too, because it does help out a lot of the students, because they have this idea of feeling like, oh, they suck, and having this idea that it's not, it's just them, like they're the only ones that are feeling this way too. And they forget to understand that we are also like their peers, and like we have the same struggles, like you said, the balancing everything out, which is really hard. We're just there to help them through this situation since we know a little bit more than they do.
Yeah, yeah. If I have to start identifying things I'm proud of at the DLC, well, that'll be the last question you get to ask, because it's a long list for me. And I think that the academic coaches, yourself included, are near the top of that list. One of the things that's really um, I don't know if proud is the right way to Fred. I get really excited about every year, and one of the things I really like to um, see or be a part of at the DLC is this transformation that happens when we hire new coaches and they come in and they've probably had some experience with the DLC before. Often they've had taken our study skills course, or they've come for coaching themselves, or not always, but some, for many of them have. But still, they're sort of still novices at the material and about the process. And a year later, after they've gotten trained and they've gotten a lot of experience, these are people that I can see differences in their confidence, their way they interact with people, the way that they understand the kind of help that they're providing. And it's just nice to really see that transformation. I don't get to see it as directly as I'd always like to. Last summer, when we had a transition in the person who supervised the coaches, I got to be a part of it a little bit more actively, and that was really great. We have a new person doing that's been in place all year, Jackie Von Spiegel, but I still sort of hear from her and get to see secondhand at least. And again, being away from the office has made that a little less. I don't get to peek in and see the people that you're meeting with and sort of eavesdrop a little on the meetings that you guys are having out in the main office area and stuff as much as I used to. I could get a better sense of the discussions and what people are talking about, and see the growth in people's understanding and mastery and ability to help other students and stuff. But I think that that's something really to be proud of. And I see it in the classes too. We have our flagship study skills course has a capstone project, if you will, that is the learning showcase, or the study skills showcase, or the college, I forget exactly what it's some sort of showcase.
The showcase.
And what it involves is students from the class presenting on a book or some other sort of material that they've read and been exposed to, and they've tried to apply it to their own lives. And then they make a presentation as part of the showcase, usually as a poster or as a talk or a pamphlet, something that provides their own perspective on that. And through these projects, you can really, and I get a chance to go out, the showcase is them sitting or standing around in a room and talking about these things. And I get to wander around and talk and, experience and sort of ask them questions about these things. And you really get a sense from many of them that the class has changed their confidence, their skills, their ability, the way they feel about themselves as learners, and the way that they feel that their academic life is going to unfold from here on out. You see a lot more students that are like, this class has been great. It's really taught me a lot about, and it's never the same thing. It's not, there's many themes, but it's not the exact same thing that every student says. Some students are like, it's really motivated me. It's taught me to how to motivate myself and the importance of this or that. Others are like, it's really helped me with time management. Others, it's helped me with test anxiety or, test taking skills. There's so many different things that they identify. And I know that comes out of the coaching sessions too. One of the things that we really excited about with the Dennis Center is its ability to be flexible and fit the response that it gives to the kinds of concerns that students bring to the table. And I'm really proud of how we can do that. We're not a cookie cutter operation where, the only thing we can do is help you with procrastination. We can do that. We can help you sort of be better about not procrastinating and preventing procrastination from being something that detracts from your academic progress. But at the same time, if it's, test anxiety, if it's a sense of belonging, if it's, the value that you see in the work or other, if it's just not really feeling skilled at learning how to study when it's a lab course. How do you study? How do you do that? Or how do you write papers? We don't necessarily get into the nitty gritty of how you're a good writer, but we can help you structure your time and develop some skills. And, we're really good, I think, at being connected and networked to other support units on campus. And so if you come with us and you say, oh, this is my issue, I don't know how to write paragraphs very well, we'll be like, well, we don't really, we can do what we can with you, but really where you need to go is the writing center. And let's make sure you know where that's at and you know how to get access there and, that sort of thing. So I don't think the Dennis Center is the answer to every question, other than we know how to point you in the direction where other people might help you with the answers or get the answers.
Right. Because there's definitely a whole bunch of resources on OSU's campus, and for a whole bunch of different for different areas and different students. And students do tend to get confused about us being tutoring or the writing center. So it's really great that I know when I was first hired, definitely we did this whole list of different resources that are on campus for different students and also for different student populations as well. And targeting those different resources and talking them about during our coaching sessions really does help out.
Yeah, I mean, Ohio State is a big place and it's a complicated place. And, one of the things that we hopefully we're addressing even with this session that we're doing today is that even though the Dennis Center does a lot to try and market and make students aware of who we are and what we do, every year when I teach an undergraduate class, and the class that I teach generally has, sophomores, mostly juniors and some seniors, right? And I ask, who's heard of the Dennis Learning Center? And, I'm disappointed all the time in the number of hands that don't go up, right? Because to me, it's a failure on our part to make everybody aware of what this resource is that's available. And if they don't know about us, they probably don't know about other places on campus too that might help them and be, there for them. Ohio State has a ton of resources and a ton of offices and people that want to be helpful. They want to help you get over the challenges, the particular challenges that you face. We have offices for commuter students and for, students from different backgrounds or students that are, having problems with specific courses or content areas and, or legal problems, roommate problems, all this. And too often students don't understand that there are places out there that get help. Now, as you were saying, we don't do tutoring. If you're having trouble understanding physics or chemistry, we don't provide tutoring in the content. We're not going to explain chemistry to you. Our coaches aren't going to be explaining chemistry to you. But if you're having difficulty because you're procrastinating doing the work, or you're not good at finding a place to study, or other kinds of more general study strategies might be a problem or a concern, come see us. That's what we do. And we know how to get in touch with the tutors, the content. If that's what you really need, we can help you get hooked up with the kind of people that do that kind of work that will be helpful. So hopefully, I'm sure the audience for this is huge, and that's not going to be a concern anymore. I think after doing this session with you, because I know you have a huge following.
Yes, we do.
You should.
So our next question, let's see. So how do you feel about the issues that are going on in like the US, and how has like the DLC been supportive to our students, especially during this uncertainty time with like the COVID crisis, all the stuff in the news with the killings of Black individuals? How do you feel that? How's your feelings on this issue, and how has us as the DLC been supportive?
So I'll treat that as two separate questions. First, the COVID kind of pandemic response, and then you talk about it as things in the news, and it's true that it's in the news, but I don't. In my mind, it's not that this stuff has been in the news. It's the underlying issues that are the issue, the point, right? Like
Right.
the stuff in the news is just a recognition that there are underlying issues of systematic racism that pervade so much of our culture and our society, including higher education. And it's just a matter of now we have this opportunity for people to become aware, increase the awareness of that, and to capture the energy to try and address those situations. So going back to the COVID, I mean, what happened here from the perspective of the Dennis Learning Center is that the way in which kids were trying to learn and make progress in their academic careers drastically changed in the middle of March, from a situation in which they were living on campus, interacting with their peers, interacting with their professors and their instructors in a face-to-face context, interacting with the Dennis Center in all of our forms of outreach, for the most part, in a face-to-face context, to suddenly being away from campus and every kind of contact being driven by virtual kinds of interactions. I've been really proud of how the Dennis Center has responded to that. We immediately went into what can we do to ensure that the kinds of services that we provide, the kinds of support that we provide, continues to be offered at the high level of quality that we normally do it or have been doing it in the past. And so the courses that we taught immediately, of course, went online, and the instructional team got together and made sure that to the extent possible, we could continue those kinds of experiences in a way through virtual means that allowed students to learn as much as possible, to improve themselves as much as possible, that got through the material, and I think we were generally successful at that. We had the advantage that our biggest course already had sections online, even from the start of the semester. And so we had some experience and some knowledge about how these things could be done. We also have such an energetic, caring, and thoughtful group of instructors, graduate student instructors, that they immediately, went into what can I be doing to make sure my students are still getting this material well and learning it. And so I think through the end of the semester, that went really well. I have an energetic, thoughtful, and enthusiastic, set of coaches that also said, okay, we have to switch coaching to an online format, to Zoom and stuff. And we have to make video clips and provide some of the workshop material and the material that normally students might get when they came to us for coaching or workshops. We have to make that available online. And they did that. We had the freedom and the creativity and the energy to get that done. And I think if you go to our website, you will see that you can get coaching sessions, one-on-one coaching still through Zoom meetings. And I think, it has its ups and downs, but I think on the whole, it's been a positive experience, both for the coaches and for the students, at least the feedback that I'm getting. And it's something that we're going to be continuing into the fall. We've tried to make, we responded by saying, let's make some videos about how you learn through Zoom. How do you interact? How do you use Zoom? How do you, and trying to make, at least adding to the effort to make sure that students didn't get overly challenged with that experience. So I don't know exactly what instruction is going to look like in the fall, and the extent to which some courses will continue to be online, students will be socially distanced, and so, but I'm confident that the DLC will respond in ways that with its core mission intact, which is to help students be academically successful.
Correct. Yeah.
Turning to the sort of other shoe that sort of has upended a lot of people's lives, or sort of become very, as you say, in the news, the sort of the killings, the protests, the demand for a recognition of the issues of driving systematic racism, and the need to change the way we sort of go about the day-to-day business in order to address those problems. I don't want to say fix, because I don't think we can, it's a fixed issue. It's going to be a process of change and addressing these over time. Eventually there will be, I hope, I trust, a fix that we will, as a society, as a culture, get over this, or get through it and be better for it. At the DLC, it has struck people, it's, even if you're not a person of color, it's something that you've, my dog is here someplace, he's starting to rumble a little bit. It's something that has, I think, become an important part of your life. Feeling the need to go out and make your voice heard through protests, through demonstrations, or in other ways, to be supportive of those that are, even if you're not out with feet on the streets, kind of thing. I know that because of what the coaches wanted to do, we put together an effort to donate money to the Urban League in Columbus. I think we did. I think we have, all of our training. So we train our teachers, our instructors, we train our coaches, we try to train each others at the staff level. All of it, I'm hopeful, includes efforts to be understanding of the kinds of underlying issues of diversity, inclusion, and equity, and knowing the importance of those things and the role that they can play in students' lives, both feeling that, that some students may feel because there's not as many people on campus that look like them as they might want, but not feeling like that means that they don't belong, or making sure that issues of equity and inclusion are covered in the courses. We try to make sure that we are a well-trained, that we understand these things well, and that we can, it's difficult to say overcome and not have this issue within the context of the DLC. I don't, you do your best.
Right.
That's what I think we try to achieve. We try to work towards ensuring that we are not a place that where a person of color comes in, or someone from an LGBTQ background comes in, or other kinds of minority student background students come in, first generation students come back around, low income students come in, where they come in and they don't feel welcome, they don't feel that they are respected, that they don't feel like they are somebody who we want to be a part of and help to achieve at Ohio State. Because if I'll speak personally, I don't think any of those things provide unsurmountable barriers to people's success at Ohio State, or represent people that we don't want at Ohio State, or we think don't belong at Ohio State. Those are just people that have other challenges that may make achieving at Ohio State something that needs particular kinds of supports and particular kinds of assistance. Just like kids that come from, they may come from a rural white school, but they may not have a background in chemistry because they didn't have strong chemistry of courses available at their class or in their high school, and people come to Ohio State with all kinds of different challenges that they have to face, right? So hopefully we, as a unit of Ohio State, and as Ohio State more generally, that we have understood this problem and have been working towards it. And because of the stress that's been put on it and the recognition that's been driven by the unfortunate events that have been going on the unfortunate events have been going on for a while. The response to it has been increased over the summer. And I think it's providing everybody an energy and a focus on the need to stop ignoring it, stop hoping that it gets better, and doing something about it. And it's one of the things that when we come back to campus and sort of our regular activities in the fall, it's not something that we will be forgetting. It's something that we're going to be trying to work through and do our best to ensure it continues to be part of what we want to achieve at the DLC.
Definitely, yeah. And especially like for me, like as a Black male individual, and how like you written a statement about like our diversity, inclusion, and equity for the Dentist Learning Center, which is on our website and also our social media platforms. Really important that there is this response mechanism that we are doing to understand that this is an issue and this will be continuously an issue. We just need to know how to find that fix that you said to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're looking for ideas and energy and efforts because, it's easy for a person like myself, a white male with a position of power somewhat, to sort of get complacent and think, oh yeah, we're doing good stuff. We're doing great. And I think it's important for people like me to be challenged and to really have the time and the energy and the motivation to be reflective and to be creative and to hear other ideas and other perspectives so that we don't, get that attitude like, oh, it's fine, or this isn't something that needs to be fixed within it's someplace else where it's a problem. It's not a problem or something that we can do anything about. Let's move away from that assumption and let's move to the assumption that, there's always more to be done. And let's start thinking about what those more things can be.
Right. So my second to last question is, besides like the DLC and how you talked about your passion for the DLC, what is like your favorite thing about OSU?
My favorite thing about OSU, I have a lot of favorite things about OSU. I mean, my experience at OSU has been a lot different in several key ways than my experience at the University of Houston, where it was the only university I was at before this. A lot of that has to do with the idea that OSU is it's a big, large state institution, and it's I love walking around campus and being a part of the undergraduate experience. I love fall on campus and being there on campus and all of that. I mostly love the football. And I'm hoping I get to go back and see some football games this fall. I'm actually more of a basketball fan. I went to many of the basketball games this past winter, and I'm really excited about that team. Again, most of the time. But there's a lot that I really like about it. I mean, being a part of the OSU community, it has been wonderful for me, and I think wonderful for my family. Like I said, if it was up to me, it might be that I would have all of my immediate family would have a connection this time next year to Ohio State. My son would still be a student there. My daughter would be a student there. I'm a professor there. My wife is a professor at OSU. And so, we're invested. And it's not because we don't like the place. It's exactly the opposite. So,
right. All right.
What's not to like?
What's not to like about OSU? So here's a question that I have for you. I would say it's like pretty much a question that I want to know more about with you. Pancakes or waffles? Which one would you choose?
Pancakes or waffles? Which one would I choose? I think if I'm truly having breakfast, I'm probably likely to go for the pancakes, especially if it's sort of some foo-foo banana walnut pancakes. I don't like fruit pancakes like strawberry stuff. It's more if it's more of a brunch thing, if it's later in the morning and it's sort of a brunch thing, then I'm more of a chicken and waffles kind of person, right? And going for that kind of thing. To be fair, I probably don't order either of those very often. I'm doing a low carb thing, so more likely to go for the eggs and the omelets. But
Hmm.
I miss both of them. Now, since I've been home and cooking a lot more of my own breakfast, normally I was a quick breakfast and off to work. Now I can linger a little bit more, and pancakes are back on the menu.
That's nice. So do you have any questions for me at all?
Oh, I have all kinds of questions. I see our time is running out. But let me ask you
Hmm.
this question, right? So, um, as an undergraduate student at OSU, what do you think, where would you point me as, say, maybe as a faculty member, you don't know about this awesome thing to do at Ohio State or in Columbus, right? Like, what's the kind of thing, what should I be doing to get better in touch with and have more contact with undergraduates and the fun things that they like to do? Is there a
Hmm.
place? Is there a restaurant? Is there an activity? What am I probably missing because it's my job and I'm not there as a student?
So there's actually a lot of answers to this question. Firstly, especially since I am like on the sports side, and also that's my major sport industry. I would say definitely like all the games going to even like if they're not like the football and like the basketball games, there are a lot of games you can go to for free if you're an OSU student. Um, Primarily what I like, and I always did, I enjoyed wrestling. So I go to a lot of the wrestling matches that OSU gives, and just looking at all the other sports that they are offered. I would say another thing for like restaurants and for like fun social areas, I would say going to like the short north. There's a lot of great restaurants there. There's the North Market. I would say Bakersfield is one of my favorites too, and also definitely going to get some Jenny's. Really good ice cream. I can't do that either now because I'm actually on a diet too, so trying to trying to see some healthier options to
But
see
it's
in OSU.
summer. Ice cream, it's almost health food, right? It's got a lot of calcium in it.
Almost.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Um,
which
well,
sport do you like? You said wrestling, right? I like wrestling.
hmm
I haven't been to a wrestling thing here. I've been to volleyball and I think in basketball and football, of course. I haven't done to some of the other sports yet. And I was one thing that I like to do as a student when I was at Michigan too, was to go to those sort of off sports because you can get so close and sort of feel like you have a real impact on it, right?
right.
I'm hoping, and it may be that come fall, that might be more fun to go to those because it's easier to socially distance and you
hmm
you still get to see live events, right, up close and personal. Right? Yeah,
Right. It's
I'll
just a
look
whole
into it.
bunch of stuff
Yeah.
that definitely highly recommend. Highly recommend.
All right.
Um, well, thank you, Dr. Walters, for being interviewed today. And you have been a really big help to all different aspects of the Dennis Learning Center. Just talking about the academic coaching side, but definitely with our courses, research, and continuous like growth within the Dennis Learning Center as well. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate that feedback. I try to do well, and I hope that, and I believe that the Dennis Center is doing a great job. And it's not certainly not just me. It's people like yourself that make up the actual doers, the people that are closest to the students and that have the direct access to the students that I think are the most valuable. So anyway, it was fun talking to you today.
Thank you. Also, if you guys are all interested, so please make sure you look at our different social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and also we have a YouTube channel. And go to our website for more information about the Dennis Learning Center. Other than that, Tyler is out.
All right. See ya.
See ya.